3 years ago, my fiancée died in a car crash that I could have prevented. Now, something has started whispering to me from outside my window at night, and it sounds just like her. The problem is, I was the one who had to identify the body, and I know for a fact that whatever is out there, it isn't the woman I was supposed to marry. There's a common saying, we make our own demons. People say it to feel in control, to put a neat little psychological label on the things that chew us up from the inside out. It's a comforting lie. It implies the darkness is a part of us, something we can negotiate with, maybe even starve out with enough therapy and prescription pills. But I know the truth. The real demons, the ones that have been walking this earth since the first bone was broken in anger, they aren't in us. They're outside. They're patient. They wait in the static between radio stations, in the warped reflection on a rain-slicked road, in the suffocating silence of a home that used to be filled with laughter. They don't need to be created. They just need an invitation. And the most powerful invitation in the world is grief. My name is Paul. I used to be a guy who fixed things. Cars, mostly. I took pride in it. The logic of it. A problem had a cause, and the cause had a solution. A busted gasket, a worn-out clutch, a faulty alternator, you could diagnose it, get your hands dirty, and make it right. There was an order to it. An honesty. I spent 15 years of my life with grease under my fingernails and the smell of gasoline in my clothes. It's who I was. The guy who could make things whole again. The one thing I couldn't fix was Michelle's car. She'd been complaining for a week, maybe two. A low, grinding hum from the front passenger side when she'd get up to highway speeds. It sounds like a grumpy bear, Paul, she'd laughed. I told her it was probably a wheel bearing starting to go. An easy fix. 4 bolts, a new hub assembly, an hour of my time. I'll get to it this weekend, I promise, I told her. But the weekend came and a buddy of mine needed help with his deck. Then it was a call from my mom about a leaky faucet. Life gets in the way. The small jobs get pushed. I told myself it wasn't urgent. A wheel bearing makes noise for a long, long time before it fails catastrophically. It's a warning sign, not a death sentence. 3 years ago, that diagnosis became the epitaph on my life. She was on the interstate, coming home. We'd had a stupid argument over the phone 10 minutes earlier. Something about money, about wedding plans. The kind of dumb, forgettable friction that happens when 2 lives are merging into one. My last words to her weren't "I love you." They were laced with frustration. The state trooper's report was clinical, detached. Catastrophic wheel bearing failure at high speed. The wheel seized. The car, her little Honda, pulled violently to the right, shot across 2 lanes of traffic, and introduced itself to an old-growth oak tree that had been standing there since the Civil War. They said the impact was immense. They said it was instantaneous. They said she never would have felt it. They say a lot of things to make you feel better. None of it works. Michelle was an orphan, in a practical sense. Her parents had died in a similar way, a single car wreck on a black ice night in County Clare, Ireland, when she was just a teenager. She was in the back seat and walked away with a concussion and a broken clavicle. A miracle, they called it. I call it a curse that went dormant. A debt that was deferred. She had no family here in the States, so the grim duty of identification fell to me. I've never been in a morgue before. The cold isn't just in the air, it seeps out of the stainless steel and the tiled floors. It's a dead cold, a sterile cold that smells of bleach and something else, something metallic and vaguely sweet. The coroner was a man whose face seemed to have been carved from old soap. All soft lines and sagging sympathy. He put a hand on my shoulder, a gesture that felt both rehearsed and utterly useless. "Are you ready, son?" he asked. His voice was like gravel in a tin can. I just nodded. I wasn't ready. I'll never be ready. He pulled back the sheet. It's a funny thing, the human mind. It has a defense mechanism. Sometimes, when you see something too horrible, it just refuses to process it. It throws up a blue screen of death. For a split second, I didn't recognize her. My brain simply could not connect this thing on the table with the woman who stole my hoodies and left her teacups on every surface of our apartment. The report didn't do it justice. Blunt force trauma is a sanitized, sterile phrase. It doesn't describe the way a jaw can be broken and pushed back into the throat. It doesn't explain the unnatural angles of limbs, the way an arm can bend in a place it has no joint. Her eyes. God, her eyes were open. Not seeing, but open. Two dark, empty windows in a house that had been violently demolished. And her hair, her beautiful black hair, was matted with blood and glass and things I refused to name. I, the man who fixed things, stood there looking at the one thing so irrevocably broken that it shattered my entire world. And all I could think was, 4 bolts. 1 hour of my time. The grief that followed wasn't a feeling. It was a condition. A sickness. It had a physical weight. I'd wake up in the morning and the sheer gravity of it would hold me in bed. I lost my job at the garage. Couldn't focus. My hands would tremble. Every time I heard an air wrench, I'd see the twisted metal of her Honda. I stopped answering my phone. Friends tried, for a while. They'd come by, bring food I wouldn't eat, offer condolences that sounded like empty platitudes. But you can't share a sickness like mine. It's radioactive. You either flee, or you get contaminated. They fled. I don't blame them. I ended up back at my mom's house, in my tiny childhood bedroom. A single bed, a small dresser, and a window that looked out over the quiet suburban street. My mom and stepdad, bless them, gave me my space. They travel a lot now that they're retired. It's for the best. I'm not company anyone would want to keep. For the first year, it was just the silence and the memories. Then, the sound started. It was always late. After 1 a.m. A car, somewhere down the street. But it sounded sick. A deep, mechanical groaning, the rhythmic thump-thump-thump of a thrown connecting rod, followed by a high-pitched squeal. As a mechanic, it set my teeth on edge. The first few times, I'd get up and look out the window. Nothing. Just the empty street, bathed in the sickly orange glow of the streetlights. Not even a parked car in sight. Night after night. The sound would come and go. Sometimes it sounded distant, other times, like it was right outside. It was a phantom, an auditory ghost. And every time I heard it, the image from the morgue would flash in my mind, bright and searing like a welder's arc. Her face. That broken, silent scream. I started having dreams. Not just falling or drowning. They were specific. I'd be under a car on a lift, and the smell of gear oil would turn into the sweet, cloying smell of the morgue. I'd reach for a wrench and my hand would close around a shard of safety glass. I'd dream I was driving, and the reflection in the rearview mirror wasn't mine, but hers. But not her smiling, vibrant face. Her morgue face. With those two empty, accusing eyes. About a month ago, the haunting changed its tune. It was a Saturday night. Close to 2 a.m. I was lying in bed, doom scrolling on my phone, when I heard footsteps on the pavement outside. This was normal. People stumbling home from the local bar. But these steps were wrong. They had a broken rhythm. A heavy thud, a lighter tap, then a sound like something wet being dragged for a half second. Thud, tap, drag. Thud, tap, drag. It stopped directly below my window. My blood went cold. Every nerve in my body stood at attention. I held my breath, straining to listen over the pounding in my ears. Silence. A thick, watchful silence. For 5 solid minutes, there was nothing. I was about to write it off as my frayed nerves playing tricks on me when I heard it. A whisper. So faint, it was almost indistinguishable from the rustling of leaves in the autumn wind. A woman's voice. I sat bolt upright in bed, my phone forgotten in my lap. The sound didn't repeat. A few minutes later, the silence was shattered by my neighbor and his girlfriend, laughing and fumbling with their keys as they came home. The familiar, normal sound was a relief so profound it made me feel lightheaded. I called myself an idiot and lay back down. The next morning, I forced myself to go out for groceries. As I walked down my driveway, my eyes caught a glint of light on the pavement, right where the footsteps had stopped. I bent down. It was a ring. A simple silver band. My breath hitched in my throat. It was a perfect duplicate of the engagement ring I had given Michelle. My heart hammered against my ribs. I looked around wildly, a paranoid animal. My next-door neighbor, Sal, was out tending his rose bushes. He was an old guy, a Vietnam vet, kept to himself. He gave me a short, sharp nod. I didn't respond. I just clutched the ring, turned around, and locked myself back inside the house. I went to my dresser, to the small wooden box where I kept her things. Her watch, a lock of her hair, a few old photos. And there, nestled in the faded velvet, was her actual engagement ring. The one the coroner had given back to me in a little plastic bag. They were identical. Perfect copies. That night, I knew it would be back. I sat on my bed, staring at the curtains, the duplicate ring cold in my hand. And just like clockwork, around 1 a.m., I heard it. Thud, tap, drag. It came up the street, louder this time, more confident. It stopped right below my window. I didn't move. I just listened. A long, slow breath hissed from the darkness outside, like air leaking from a punctured tire. And then the whisper came. Not faint this time. It was clear. It was intimate. It was right at my ear. Paul. My skin erupted in goose flesh. It was her voice. Not a recording, not a memory. It was her voice, with the little lilt she had when she was about to ask for a favor. It's so cold out here, honey. My throat closed up. I couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. It was impossible. She was dead. I saw her. I buried her. Let me in, Paul. I miss you. All I could do was sit there, frozen, tears streaming down my face. I didn't answer. I just cried silently in the dark until the first hint of dawn, when the presence outside my window seemed to dissolve with the morning mist. The next day I saw Sal again. I was taking out the trash, looking like a ghost myself. I hadn't slept. He was watering his roses, his back to me. Grief's a hungry thing, Paul, he said, without turning around. His voice was low and gravelly. I froze, my hand on the lid of the trash can. What? He finally turned, his eyes were old and tired, like he'd seen too much of the world. It leaves a scent. Like blood in the water. Attracts things. Things that feed on the echoes. I just stared at him, my mind unable to parse what he was saying. My wife, Mary, he continued, snipping a dead bloom from a bush. She lost her brother in the Ia Drang Valley. 4 years after, she'd hear him, whispering from the storm drains at night. Begging her to come find him. He looked me dead in the eye. Some things get an address, Paul. They know where the pain lives. He then turned back to his roses, the conversation over. That night, the voice was back. And it was insistent. Paul, please. Open the curtain. I just need to see you. I know you found my ring. I dropped it for you. So you'd know it was me. Don't you love me anymore, Paul? Please, I'm so alone. My grief, which had been a crushing weight, began to curdle into a hot, blistering rage. You're not her. I screamed at the window, my voice cracking. Michelle is dead. Leave me alone. There was a pause. And then, a sound that chilled me to the bone marrow. A soft, airy laugh. Her laugh. The one she'd make when I'd say something stupidly romantic. Oh, honey. Of course she is. She had to be. How else would I find you? My blood ran cold. The words made no sense but carried a terrifying logic. She was the key, the voice whispered, its tone changing. It was no longer begging. It was explaining. It was gloating. The trauma she carried from her parents, that was the first scent. A little appetizer. I let her go then. Let her live. Let her love. Because grief is so much richer when it's shared, Paul. It marinates. Her death, your pain, it's a feast. I stumbled back from the window, my mind reeling. Sal's words. Things that feed on the echoes. This wasn't the ghost of my fiancée. This was something else. Something ancient and predatory that had been attached to her family's tragedy for years, waiting. Waiting for a bigger meal. What are you? I whispered, my voice trembling. The voice laughed again, but this time it wasn't just Michelle's laugh. It was layered, distorted. I could hear other voices within it, an old man, a young woman, a child. A chorus of the consumed. I am the thing that waits by the side of the road, it said, its voice a symphony of stolen sorrows. I am the last thing you see. I am the silence after the crash. And I am so hungry. For the next week, I lived in a self-imposed prison. Curtains drawn, doors locked. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. The whispering was constant now. Sometimes at the bedroom window, sometimes the kitchen window, sometimes scratching at the front door. It no longer begged. It tempted. The pain can stop, Paul. You're already gone. You just haven't let go of the body. One little look. That's all it takes. Let me show you her face again. The real one. The one you loved. I can make you whole again. That last one broke me. The man who fixed things. The promise of being made whole again. I was so tired. The grief was a physical cancer, eating me alive. Sal was right. It was a hungry thing. But it wasn't the monster that was hungry. It was me. I was starving for relief. For an end to the agony. Last night, I got out of bed. I don't remember making the decision. My body just moved. I walked to the window, the chorus of whispers growing excited, eager. My hand was shaking, but not from fear anymore. From anticipation. It knew what I was going to do. There you are, it cooed in Michelle's perfect, loving voice. I pulled the curtain open. It stood on the lawn, just beyond the reach of the orange streetlight. It looked like Michelle. It was wearing the faded black hoodie she stole from me years ago. Her hair fell across her face in that way I always loved. She looked real. She looked healthy. She looked whole. But the details were wrong. A painter's trick. Perfect from a distance, but up close, the forgery reveals itself. Her fingers were too long, hanging down by her sides like pale, slender roots. Her eyes, fixed on mine, were a fraction too wide, and they didn't blink. Not once. And when she smiled, a wide, loving smile, it didn't touch those dark, unblinking eyes. She raised a hand to the window, beckoning me. It's okay, Paul, she said. But her mouth didn't move. The voice came from inside my own head. I wasn't afraid. The man who fixed things was dead. The man who had lost everything had nothing left to fear. I looked at this beautiful, terrible monster, this parasite wearing the face of my dead love, and I felt nothing but a profound, hollow peace. It was offering an escape. An end to the echo. My hand went to the lock on the window. I unlocked it. Then I slid the window up. The sweet, cloying smell of the morgue filled the room instantly, thick and overpowering. The creature's smile widened, stretching its face in a way that was not human. It began to step forward, to climb through the opening. A hand, cold as granite, rested on my shoulder. And as it pulled me into an embrace, it whispered in my ear. But it wasn't Michelle's voice anymore. It was a chorus of 1,000 stolen goodbyes. There now, the voices hissed in unison. The echo fades. Time to be made whole.